I would say Donald Trump comes from his gut, but at some point you have to add substance. And if you would combine those two together, that's what I wanted when I first supported him. That's what I expected when I first supported him. But you can't just go with gut forever. He's going to be.
That's when you left him.
Yes. At some point, you got to go beyond your gut.
That's such a diametric turn to go from that to.
Well, we're talking about the future of the world here. We're talking about the leader of the free world. I mean.
But you were willing to entertain Donald Trump, and you've gone back to conventionalism, right, with her?
That's one way to put it, but no, I wouldn't say I've gone back to conventionalism. I'd say we have two candidates, one who understands our place in the world, one who believes in American exceptionalism, one who's well-versed on the issues, one who's come up and originated policies on their own, one who speaks her mind, and then another who has to be told what not to say and do in order to seem presidential.
All right, I have a feeling my next guest has a slightly different read on last night's big event. His name, of course, is Scott McNealy, a Silicon Valley legend, former head of Sun Microsystems, doing so much more these days. Scott, you might have heard what Mark Cuban was saying. He was sitting in that front row as maybe an agitator for Donald Trump, that Donald Trump didn't get that message across. He stumbled his way through. Polls seem to indicate it was sort of like a split verdict. What about you?
Well, you know, I didn't learn a lot in that debate. I don't think the questions were posed that were important. They weren't the philosophy questions of how you're going to run the country. Do you believe in big government, or do you believe in the private sector? Do you believe a right is something you can give to everyone without taking from anyone, or do you believe health care is a right? Do you think government should be running health care, our education? Those are the kinds of questions I'd like to understand, and you can draw out those sorts of things. Around ethics, and you know, both sides are saying, well, my person doesn't lie as much as yours does, sort of seems to be the big argument on that. So I think we got two capable politicians from that perspective. They're both capable of misrepresenting what they said or what they did or why they did things. So I think we're stuck with a couple of tough choices here, but I'm always going to fall towards putting more power in the hands of the people, more liberty in the hands of the people, smaller government, less regulation, less taxes, less redistribution, because I think that's the only way we can safeguard the American exceptionalism that we've had for hundreds of years.
You know, you know a thing or two about you have to make a cogent, clear point. You dealt with this just dealing with shareholders and the press, and I thought a lot of times...
Trying to do it now.
Many times, Trump was doing that effectively, and then he wouldn't stop talking, and then he wandered. I'm not saying that Hillary Clinton didn't do the same on a couple of moments, but far fewer. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I don't know how people at home respond to a debate on an emotional, on an intellectual level, maybe both. What do you think?
Oh, as I've said many times, the worst CEO is 1,000 times better than the best politician. Hillary is a trained and hardened government lawyer. She's going to present a much more cogent, she's been trained to go do that. He's a trained and hardened, you know, entrepreneur, and, you know, schooled in the ways of capitalism, the invisible hand, the market economy, and the private sector. So he's not going to be as good on that stage. I think his gut has to be, in more ways, more inclined with my view of wanting to keep government small, keep our liberties high, and provide opportunities for everyone, as opposed to, you know, more of the same continuing ratcheting of a bigger and more intrusive and more regulatory government. So, you know, you've got a good question here, and a lot of people are asking, is his inability to articulate so... I mean, he's very ineffective times when he articulates and says it over and over and over and over again. You wonder, what's going on there? Doesn't he have a mirror? Doesn't he listen to his talks? Sometimes you got to wonder about that.
You know, you also got to wonder if you acknowledge a mistake or you didn't have a great outing, then how you correct it. I don't know how this applies to you per se. I mean, in your early days, going before the public and going before shareholders and going before nasty reporters were also hard. That you practice how to deal with that. We hear talk that he didn't heed a lot of advice he was given. I don't know if that's true. But part of it was articulate your message fast, be concise, move on, never be on defense, always be on offense. turn every question around to your central theme. And he didn't do enough of that. What do you make of that?
I would argue that's fair, and I can't tell you how many times I want to be in my candidate's body and mind and actually doing the debate for them, but we don't get a chance to go do that, and we're given two choices here.
So if you had to advise him,
are
Scott, I didn't want to jump on you, my friend, but if you had to advise him for the next debate, because everyone here has, what would you tell him?
I would have I'd have him memorize the 20 key points he wants to get out. 15 of them are going to be what I'm going to do, and 5 of them are things you need to avoid in our other candidate. And I would just drill all of those home, and every answer would get back to those and drive those key points, and I would stay on message. She doesn't answer the question. She gives a lot of blah, 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 and, I think a lot of people can see through that. He's not giving answers either. He's off defending accusations. That's right. I understand what he's saying because I've been in business and I've dealt with lawsuits from people. I've dealt with PR issues. I've dealt with hiring and firing folks, all the rest of it, and I know what that's all about. He's just not articulating those issues very well and clearly, and he needs to practice.
Yeah, I remember with you famously. If you didn't like a question, you either didn't answer it or you would give a one-word response, yes or no. And people didn't know how to handle that. It was so quick and to the point. We'll see what happens, Scott. A lot's on the line for this next debate. Scott McNealy, always a pleasure.